Paterson Price for March 24th, 2025 from the Nation Network studios in Vancouver and beyond, built by Arbor Lee. And we are a presentation of Bet365. Yes, that is Jeff Paterson sitting in for Matt Sakaris on a very interesting day for the Canucks. And after a very interesting weekend in sports, Jeff, first off, welcome. How are things?
Yeah, good. That game on Saturday, and I know we'll get into it, but 2 days later, still having trouble sort of processing how exactly we arrived at a 5-3 loss for the Vancouver Canucks, the way that they played territorially. But it's hockey, and it's sports, and sometimes things don't go your way. But yeah, I mean, they're at a point now where they need everything to go their way, and the weekend really was a washout for the Vancouver Canucks on the out-of-town scoreboard. So nobody doing them any favors. They got to do themselves some favors starting this afternoon in Jersey.
Pretty depressing weekend for the local sports, too, because the Whitecaps dropped a game. We were still feeling the sting of losing to Mexico in men's soccer. I mean, I guess they salvaged that with the win over the United States. But, yeah, it wasn't a great weekend for the local sports fan. Let's get to our poll question, though, brought to you by Surrey Mitsubishi. And we're asking just straight off, do you still think the Vancouver Canucks can make the playoffs? And, you know, I don't like it when there's a mathematical game on the line. You know, when you're so desperate that you need to be perfect. They don't need to be perfect. They can lose a few games. But it just seems so unlikely, Jeff. This is not a team that has gone streaking much this season. This is not a team that has won more than 3 or 4 games in a row this season. So to ask them to really be the hottest team in hockey or amongst the hottest team in hockey the rest of the way, it seems like a stretch here to ask that of them.
Yeah, and the way the poll question is worded, do I think that they're going to make the playoffs? No, not anymore. Do I want them to? Yes, because playoff hockey's fun. It's the payoff for the 82-game slog. Last spring was terrific. They played until the May-long weekend, but that was last year. And the further we get from last year, I think we all realized that that was the outlier. And for so many reasons that we have documented on this program and others all season long, this is their lot in life. Now, the math is crunchy, though, because the St. Louis Blues just refuse to lose.
Yeah.
Like, all they do is win. They beat the Canucks the other day, and we've talked about this soft schedule. Well, they took care of both Chicago and Nashville over the weekend. The Canucks arrived in St. Louis on Thursday above the playoff bar, Blake, and now they're 5 points back of the Blues. Like, that's how quickly life moves in the National Hockey League when you're not picking up points and the teams around you are. I guess with 4 teams, and it's kind of in this 4-team push to the finish with Calgary and Utah as well, you had to figure that one of them was going to heat up. Like, if it's just one other team, then sure, you can hope that they lose and you win. But when there's 4 teams involved, you have to know that one of them was going to catch fire a little bit. But I don't think anybody saw St. Louis doing what they're doing since the Four Nations break. And so at the Four Nations break, the Canucks were 8 points up on the Blues at one point. Not that long ago. And now they're 5 back. But that's what a 13-2-2 run will do. So basically you're at a point now. The Blues have 10 games to go. If they go 5-5, they get to 91 points. And that's where the math comes in, that the Canucks would then have to be 8-4, 9-3. But that's supposing that St. Louis only goes 5-5. If St. Louis does better than 5-5, then it just gets that much murkier and more difficult. And of course, Calgary's got 3 games in hand on St. Louis, so the Flames aren't done. The Flames just did what the Canucks had to do, and that was take Manhattan by storm and win all 3 of their games in the New York area. They did it last year, the Canucks did, but didn't get a win at Madison Square the other night, and now Jersey and then the Island on Wednesday. So they're in tough. Time is ticking down. It's getting late early for the Vancouver Canucks, but they do have a dozen games to go, and the first of the dirty dozen tonight against the Devils.
You talk about math. We'll bring up numbers here. This isn't math. This is the voodoo of strength of schedule and such. Noah Strang of the Daily Hive bringing up the different models, of course, that look at strength of schedule and injuries and all that sort of stuff. And this is without the Athletics Dom decision, which has always favored the Canucks more than everybody else.
Right.
But there you go. Money Puck at 11.3%, Hockey Reference at 8.6% to make the playoffs, playoffstatus.com at 9%, Power Ranking Gurus at 10%, and FanDuel Sportsbook at 19.2%. So, varying degrees of optimism, or I guess pessimism, moreover here, Jeff.
Well, yeah, I mean, the high water mark isn't even 20%. So that's where the Vancouver Canucks are. But again, that's what happens when, you don't find a way to beat the St. Louis Blues in regulation the other night. And you get up 1, but you give up 2 there. And then you go to Madison Square and you skate circles around the Rangers. And you still come up on the short end of a score there. So, look, there are so many reasons. The bottom line is the Canucks just haven't done enough. And early in the season, we all pointed to the road record that was incredible. And it was. Kevin Lankinen set records for, consecutive road victories off the start of a season. They have 3 wins in their last 10 road games. Like that, at this time of year, you got to be able to take care of business at home, and then you get out on the road and you got to find a way to grind out some victories, and it just hasn't been happening for them. In fact, they don't have a regulation win on the road in their last 10. So they've been giving up points to their last 10 opponents when the Canucks are the visitors. And now, it looks like no Elias Pettersson, probably no Nils Höglander. We don't know that for sure, but the indication they didn't practice on Sunday. They left Saturday's game early, and just kind of going from bad to worse for the Vancouver Canucks at the wrong point of the season.
Yeah, and with the Elias Pettersson injury, boy, it doesn't seem likely, does it? But hey, sorry, Mitsubishi sponsoring the poll question. They do want EP40 back on top, presuming he gets back at some point this season. Everyone in the dealership is hoping that he gets around to being his normal self. Every time EP40 scores a point, you save $500 the next day on any new or used vehicle. If he gets 2 points, you can go to Siri Mitsubishi and save $1,000 the next day. If he gets 5 points, yeah, you can do the math there. $2,500 the next day. You just got to mention Sekeres and Price, and that offer is valid until the next game day. It's time to cheer on EP40 back to the top score more, save more value, more savings. Bring them any offer, and Surrey Mitsubishi will beat it. Visit them at 13820 104th Avenue in Surrey. Let's get to today's top story, brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, and it is go time here for the Vancouver Canucks in New Jersey, and it could be Thatcher Demko. This is looking like a likely Thatcher Demko start. Before we get into that with you, Jeff, let's listen in on Rick Tocchet after practice yesterday, who gave us the first sort of hint that this is where he might be going.
Well, he's had the net here about 3 times now, so that's probably as close to the full practice as he's had so far. But he's starting to feel pretty good, so we'll see what happens.
There we go. Is that enough for you to be convinced, or did you need Elliot Friedman to give you a little bit of a scoop on that here, Jeff, as he opined that he's hearing that it's going to be Thatcher Demko as a possibility to start in New Jersey, and combine that with the fact that Lankinen wasn't feeling well. Those 2 factors sort of lead you to believe this will be Demko versus the Devils.
Yeah. Look, I've seen Thatcher Demko at a couple of morning skates here last week. To my eye, looked like he wasn't laboring in any way, that there were no movements that he couldn't take part in. But morning skates, one thing. Practice is a little different, where players are going a little bit harder. I think there's more activity right in and around the net front at a practice than there probably is at a morning skate. So he got his practice in. He had a net to himself there and sounded like he is good to go. The other part of the equation, Blake, is that Kevin Lankinen has been asked to start 10 of the last 11 games. And, I mean, everybody reaches a point. And I don't think Lankinen was at his best, and certainly by the numbers, 7 saves the other day. A couple of kind of flukish bounce goals, but what turned out to be the game winner 37 seconds after the Canucks had done well to tie it again at 3-3, and off the rush, they needed a stop there, and they didn't get it. They've asked too much of Kevin Lankinen. And so this is a multi-pronged, sort of multi-layered question about their goaltending. Is Thatcher Demko 100%? We don't know. but he's been out 6 weeks with what we are led to believe was a groin injury that turned into a long-term injury. So is he 100%? Is he ever going to be 100%? Not sure there. Lankinen, there's the illness part, but also the fact that he needs a break. But then, again, this just underscores the lack of organizational trust in Artur Silovs. And, you can kind of say, it's a backup goaltender, a third-string guy. What does it really matter? But I think this is proof that they have to get their house in order at the goaltending position. You've got Lankinen signed long-term now. Demko's going into the final year of his contract. But you need a number 3 in the organization that you can trust, that can give you occasional starts so that the starter isn't asked to play 11 of every 12 games or whatever it was for Kevin Lankinen. So the Silovs thing to me is fascinating because he's no longer going to be waiver exempt next year. They used that part of his contract to their advantage, being able to bring him up and down, and they won't have that luxury. But does it matter if they, as a franchise, have no trust in this guy, from being thrust into the playoff situation a year ago to, is there a future for Artur Silovs? And the way that they've handled him here over the last month would indicate that certainly the coaching staff, I don't know about management, but Rick Tocchet and his goaltending coach, they are the ones that decide who gets the net on a given night. And they just, outside of the one that they had to go to, which was the Chicago game, they have opted against Artur Silovs at every other opportunity. And so you just wonder where it goes from here. But if it is Thatcher Demko tonight, I'm kind of looking forward to. Let's see what he can do. I don't think that he has to be the savior here. I know there are some that are thinking, hey, Demko's back, look out. Now they're going to get this goaltending. A reminder that he has not won the first 2 games in both of his returns from injury this year. Lost to St. Louis in his season debut and then got shelled by Boston. Came back in Carolina after the back spasms. Lost to the Hurricanes and then got blitzed by the Los Angeles Kings in his next game. So it's taken him a little while. And I just, I would expect that pattern that, could you possibly expect that he's going to be anywhere close to his best after being out of game action for the last 6 weeks?
Was the New York game a one-off? Their ability to get shots and dominate like that, like goaltending is defense, and goaltending will be their path to any hot streak if they can muster one. Correct?
Yeah, I suppose so. Look, you go back to the third period of that Calgary game where they were down a goal and needed offense, and they generated 17 shots that night. So, the offense, they scored 3 in St. Louis. Would like to have got a 4th one in overtime. It didn't happen for them. They get 3 the other day. So not being held to 1 or 2. They're finding ways to generate some offense. It's helping that Brock Besser's back on a heater, and that's great to see for him and the hockey club. And obviously Quinn Hughes is trying his very best to give them everything he can. But even he's got his limits here. So a one-off, I'd love to be able to find the answer to this, but how often in the annals of hockey history would a team set a season high for shots on goal, a season low for shots against, and lose? It's those types of things generally wouldn't happen all in the same game, and yet that's what went down at Madison Square on Saturday afternoon. So it was a bizarre game, 11-1 shots on goal in the first period. At one point, I think they got it to 21-4. The Rangers were so bad. Rangers had that one line change where all 3 forwards elected to change at the same. Canucks had a 5-on-2 rush. You're not going to see that very often. And again, it resulted in the Canucks getting a shot basically from the corner. They didn't do enough with that opportunity. They didn't do enough with many of their opportunities. And yet down twice in the third period and chipped away and found a way to tie. And you thought, okay, they're going to get something out of this hockey game, but ultimately they didn't. And JT Miller, old friend JT Miller, had a hand in, he sets up the 1 goal and then scores the empty netter, snaps his own 9-game personal goal-scoring drought. So, you had to feel good for JT Miller, or at least JT Miller had to feel good about the outcome there, but really didn't get the fireworks that some thought we might get with the personal battle between Elias Pettersson and JT Miller. Of course, EP40 left the game after 2 periods, so wasn't around for the third, and that's the storyline here moving forward as well, is the health and availability of some of the Canucks' top guys for this game tonight against the Devils.
Here's my one caveat to Demko the Savior is that I don't think he's coming back early. Given what he's been through, I think he is I think he's 100% here, Jeff. So I think you worry about that with a lot of goaltenders or anybody really that's coming back from an injury. But this guy, after the season that he's had, I don't think he's coming back early. So, there's the timing issue, just trying to get back up into game speed and all that. But I think he can jump in and beat Thatcher Demko tonight, don't you?
Well, if you remember, and he only lasted 10 minutes of the Leafs game, but in the previous week, he looked like Thatcher Demko of old. Like he was lights out good, giving up one, had the shutout of Colorado in there as well. So when we last saw him, he was on form, but that was 6 weeks ago. But I'm with you. Like I've seen it in my timeline already enough today. They're rushing another guy back here. He has been skating with the team for 2 weeks. This isn't rushing Thatcher Demko back to, riding on his white horse and play the final 12 games. Like that's not going to happen either. Kevin Lankinen, we think, is ill, needs a night off. They don't trust Shilovs. You've got Demko there. I kind of figured that it was all tracking to one of these games. I thought maybe the Wednesday game against the Islanders, perhaps it's been moved up by 48 hours. But, again, a full practice yesterday, lots of morning skates with the group here. This isn't a case of rushing Thatcher Demko back. It's just, where is he with his game? Fascinating goaltending matchup tonight because it's Jacob Markstrom at the other end of the ice. Jacob Markstrom missed 6 weeks in January with a knee injury. He has one win in his last 6 games, and his numbers since returning are brutal, like a .422 goals against average and an .833 save percentage. So that's not the Jacob Markstrom we saw at the height of his game while he was here and then moved on to Calgary and now in Jersey, and has lost the last couple. Gave up 4 goals in the third period, I think, the other night against Calgary. Tough loss. So, the Devils they're locked into a playoff spot, but no Jack Hughes, no Dougie Hamilton. They kind of look like they are set to face Carolina in the first round of the playoffs as the lower seed there. So I don't think they're in danger of being caught from behind, but, I'm not sure what they have to play for. I guess if you're Jacob Markstrom, you want to find your game and make sure that you're better come playoff time than you have been here because they've got Jake Allen as a backup. But you got Demko trying to find his game, and at the other end of the ice, it's going to be Jacob Markstrom, who hasn't been particularly good for the New Jersey Devils. So we'll see what this leads to in the way of a couple of old friends going head-to-head between the pipes tonight.
And we should say that, too, different for the Devils tonight. But going forward, Islanders and Jackets on the docket for the Canucks coming up. They're below the playoff bar. We'll see what they do in the interim. But if both of those teams continue to lose and both of them are coming off of losses, the Islanders and Jackets, they could be in the similar position as the Vancouver Canucks in that they're a bit woe is me as well. So we'll see what both of those sides look like when the time comes. But
and interesting to note, too, that as the Canucks are playing the Devils across the river, CBJ is at the Islanders tonight, so yes. The loser there is probably done. So there are big games all around. Utah's in action tonight. The other only other team in this sort of 4-team race, Utah at home to the Detroit Red Wings.
The Chase My Tail 4-packs, tall cans, 473 mils on special for the month of March. Make sure you check them out at your favorite private and government liquor stores. Yellow Dog Brewing. Visit them in Port Moody, of course, as well. Let's move on to the rest of the team beyond Thatcher Demko. And let's hear from head coach Rick Tocchet again after practice yesterday on the availability of one Elias Pettersson and Niels Höglander.
It's more of their day to day. They're pretty sore and banged up, so we'll see what 24 hours does. I don't know. I couldn't tell you for sure either way.
So nothing definitive there, but read the expression on his face there, Jeff. That was not a guy who was looking forward to both of those players in the lineup.
No, and let's connect the dots here. Both of these guys leave after the second period on Saturday. Neither participates in practice on Sunday. The Canucks, in the meantime, call up Atu Ratu, Abbotsford's leading scorer, and he is now on hand. Pia Suter skated on the line at practice with Brock Besser and Jake DeBrusk, so loading up as much as the Vancouver Canucks can now that Besser's caught DeBrusk with his 23rd the other day. So co-leading this hockey club and Pia Suter with 20. Those are the goal scorers. after those guys, down the middle, you're looking at Teddy Bluger, Nils Åman, and Aatu Räty in some order. Does Räty get bumped up into the second-line center role for the Vancouver Canucks? Teddy Bluger is not a 2C, and we know that Nils Åman, although he did have 2 assists the other day,
Yeah, it did.
struggles to. And again, like you look at all the reasons why things should have gone. They squandered a 2-assist night or afternoon from Nils Åman, and they still couldn't get a result there. But, yeah, I mean, Elias Pettersson didn't have a point in the 2 periods he did play. That ended a 6-game streak. We know that he has been better of late. And Nils Höglander, big hit early in the hockey game on Will Borgen. Höglander's been going, and really since Christmas and finally over the last couple of weeks, the points have started to follow him around as well. So you hope. I mean, Rick Tocchet said both are day-to-day. That leads you to believe that neither is season-ending, but with 12 games to go, and if they don't play tonight, that's 11. It wouldn't take much for the Canucks to get to that point where they're starting to shut players down. So we'll get a better sense. Rick Tocchet's going to meet with the media in New Jersey a couple hours ahead of game time, so we may get some updates, and we'll probably get an answer on the starting goaltender. But, yeah, if you're going into battle, look, this team has struggled most of the season to score and generate offense. Now you're removing Elias Pettersson, the forward, and Nils Höglander, and Philip Hedl's not even on the road trip. I mean, that's half of their top 6, essentially, the way that this roster's rolled out. So, just getting tougher and tougher by the game here, but it's pro sports. Next man up, and we'll see what the next man up, if it is, in fact, Aatu Räty drawing in, see what he looks like in his first NHL game since the night the Canucks traded JT Miller. They had him on hand in Dallas, and he played in that game. So Ratu's last game in the NHL, January 31st against the Dallas Stars.
And I wanted to see him get another look. He's been playing well down in Abbotsford, but certainly not under these circumstances. And we don't know what's going on with Höglander or Pettersson. And,
No.
Depending on the injury, you could ask a guy to gut it out. You could say, if it's, the guy can't shoot, Pettersson can't shoot, but he could do everything else. Maybe it's worthwhile to still have him in the lineup. If he can take faceoffs and distribute, maybe that's still worth it. 80% of Pettersson's probably still better than everybody else that you can trot out there. But without knowing what that injury is, it's impossible to know if that's an ask that you can make of the player. But does that become just lock it down central, Jeff? Are we about to see, this is the low event team of the NHL. Are we about to see that on steroids here over however long they have to go without Elias Pettersson?
You would think that is sort of the approach that they would take.
Yeah.
I hope that it means an opportunity for Jonathan Lekkerimäki to play a little higher in the lineup, and made a nice play on the opening goal the other day. Didn't get an assist, but a controlled zone entry for this team that's always dumping and trying to chase. It was a refreshing approach, and it ultimately led to the Canucks' first goal of the hockey game midway through the first period. But they just don't have the horses, and so in that sense, what are their best path to victory is probably to try to lock it down and defend, which doesn't do a whole lot for the entertainment factor. Games on Prime, we should mention that as well. That it's the fourth and final Canucks game this season that is being streamed on Amazon Prime. So, we're going to have to wait till warm up to see, first of all, who's available and how they line up and how Rick Tocchet deploys the guys that he has at his disposal. But it does sort of feel like offense could be at a premium for the Vancouver Canucks in this one.
The Canucks can't let the nail in the coffin of the season be a JT Miller empty net goal, can they? Is that just
I hear ya.
too damn poetic for this team? They can't.
Yeah.
They've got to show a pulse, don't they? At least put 3 wins in a row. A 3-game win streak is not going to put them back into the playoffs. But at least charge the fan base just a little bit, for God's sakes.
No, and I hear you there, and yet, I think people are locked on to, all right, it's the Devils tonight, the Islanders, the road trip continues. The road trip finishes with Winnipeg. But the Canucks still have 2 with Vegas, 1 against Dallas, 1 against Colorado. Yeah. And that's where we talk about this hockey math, is that, sure, St. Louis may come back down to earth, but can the Canucks possibly squeeze 8 or 9 wins out of the remaining schedule based on the opponents that they're going to face? And so that's what made, even though St. Louis was playing well the other day, they did well to get it to overtime, missed an opportunity. Rangers are in disarray. Like, that was embarrassing, quite frankly, the way that the Rangers played in the first period. And for the Canucks not to be able to add to their lead, like, absolutely, that one got away there. And so, this Devils team is sort of scuffling along. I mean, this feels like, with what's left on the schedule, this one feels like a gettable game. So let's see what happens. But I hear you. I mean, yes, just kind of the way that this season has gone, some ways it would make sense that, of course, JT Miller's the guy that closes the door for them. But there are 12 to play. They can't pack it in. This is pro sports. You got to show up and compete. So let's see where it goes. But, yeah, I mean, that had to be a little bit, a bitter taste to see JT on the other side getting to celebrate with the Rangers. And Carson Soucy to a lesser degree, but a couple of, old friends on the other side there on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, and you're right. There's a universe not too far away from this one where even in overtime, the Canucks beat the Blues, and then they beat the Rangers because they deserved it. And that would mean that we're talking about a 1 point difference.
For sure. They'd be right there knocking on the door still. But
and that's not a big reach to ask both of those results to come true. So, and the result of all this is that the best player on the team is trying to do a little bit too much, and he's not at 100%. Hear Rick Tockett's comments post-practice yesterday on Quinn Hughes, just trying to put, like, not one Superman cape on, but maybe four of them on at the same time.
Well, he wants to win so bad. He works at his game. Obviously, the puck's on his stick a lot. He wants those moments. He wants to win so bad. And he's a guy in the room, too. When he's playing, we're a different team, right? And he's got that common influence. Saying that, sometimes he wants to win so bad that, he wants to try to do it himself sometimes. And he's so much better at that over the last couple of years, where he's starting to realize, okay, I can't be one-on-one too much because, it's almost impossible, to every game kind of put the team on your shoulder. So I think he's starting to learn that a lot right now.
And how injured do you still think he is, Jeff, too?
Well, Blake, he just set the fastest skating burst in the National Hockey League in 3 years. So that makes me wonder. That is wild to me, that when I saw that statistic, a third period dash down the right wing boards, top speed of 24.56 miles per hour, not just the fastest this season, but the fastest since 2021-22. Like, Nathan McKinnon and Connor McDavid look fast every shift. We know Quinn Hughes is all about edge work. Like, I don't think of him as a straight line absolute burner, but he had some open space there and away he went. Like, his day on Saturday, 9 shots on 15 attempts. And so, we've watched him all season. It's not surprising with the amount that he's got the puck on his stick, but I do wonder at times, when he gets on those dashes and he circles the net and he is looking for options and he sees Teddy Bluger in front, or he sees Nils Oman. And I think at that point, his thinking is, I got a better chance here, like doing it myself, than putting it on their sticks. And the Canucks had 8 high dangers in the first period the other day. But really, when I think about, did they make Igor Shesterkin make any spectacular saves? As I rack my brain, I can't remember Shesterkin. The volume of shots, yeah, impressive. But he wasn't even the first star in the building. Johnny Brodzinski was with his 2 goals, including the winner. So, did they? Yes, they had 39 shots, but did they test Igor Shesterkin that often? And I think, that kind of comes back to, this team and its struggles all season long. So it's hard to knock Quinn Hughes, and I certainly don't want to be the guy that's bashing the captain. He's trying to do everything he can at less than 100%, but I'm not sure that Quinn Hughes shooting 15 times himself is ultimately the answer for the Vancouver Canucks. And, I think at season's end, they are going to have to try to figure out how best to harness all the good that he does to lead to a little more offense for a few others. But, the play that he makes to get around Matt Rempe at the blue line there on the opening goal, that's going to live on in highlights forever. And yes, it's Matt Rempe, I get that, but that seemed to be part of the Canucks' strategy, was to get Quinn Hughes out as often as they could against Matt Rempe and essentially make it almost like a power play, because Hughes just skated circles around him, and no better example than on the play that led to the Dakota Joshua goal to open the scoring.
I haven't seen a whole lot of talk about it. It feels like everybody has mailed this in. Quinn Hughes can't win the Norris anymore. Are you in that camp?
I don't think so. I think the 14 games that he missed, Cale Makar has just kind of put the hammer down here in terms of points. He's pulled away. Zach Werenski's had an incredible season. I still think Quinn will be a finalist, and I think the numbers justify that he probably should be. And even though he's missing, he missed 14 games, he still has a chance to get to 80 points
and finish second.
And he on this low scoring Vancouver Canucks team. So, before he got injured, absolutely he was in line to defend his Norris. I just think that, if they don't make the playoffs and Cale Makar does what he's continued to do, and this happened to Makar a couple of seasons ago where he only played 66 games. He was having the kind of season that would have put, availability is part of it. You do have to. I think there's a threshold, and I think the minute that Quinn dropped below the ability to get to 70 games, like a games played total that was going to start with a 6, I think that probably sealed the deal there. But no, he should be recognized, certainly, and I do think that he'll be a finalist. I think there's sort of been a separation of the top 3 guys, and so I think he'll be a finalist, but I don't think he's going to successfully defend his Norris Trophy.
Yeah,
but maybe he's going to be in the fastest skater competition now at whatever the NHL comes up with for All-Star Weekend next year.
Well, it's funny you brought up 2 forwards and you're saying who you think about for speed bursts. It's often what people bring up about Quinn versus Makar is that Quinn's got better edge work, but that Makar's faster. Maybe not.
Apparently not. Yeah.
Maybe not the case going forward, and that's again proof that you can still continue to, because I don't know that when he first burst onto the scene, I don't think we thought he was fast at all. No, great edge work from the so I think you could argue that his speed has improved and put that down as yet another player that has shown that you can improve, and as we bring up Aatu Räty again, who's jumping back into the league, if Aatu Räty had, improves his skating, I think he can be a part of the Vancouver Canucks future. He's improved so much in other parts of his game as a centerman. If he can improve, find who the Bo Horvat coach, whoever's working with Quinn, right. Get him on the Aatu Räty train, and we'll see where that leads for the Vancouver Canucks. But I don't think that's enough for Aatu Räty in the here and now.
I think we should mention as well. Yeah. Props to Kiefer Sherwood. He sets the NHL hits record. We knew that he was on pace there. He had a dozen hits the other day. I thought it was fascinating. Post game on Saturday, in the immediate aftermath, emotions are still running high. And the second question that was put to Rick Tocchet by the Canucks own reporter was about Kiefer Sherwood breaking the hits record, and Tocchet wanted none of it. He didn't even. He was like, "Yeah, good for him."
Yeah.
Kiefer Sherwood's the guy on the back check on what turns out to be the game winner. Kiefer Sherwood didn't have a shot on goal in the hockey game. He had 12 hits, but he loses his man on the back check. And I think it was the kind of day where 7 hits might have sufficed, but some attention to details elsewhere. And Rick was asked about it again after practice and got a chance on Sunday. And he elaborated a little more, and it was more complimentary with a day to sort of reflect on it. But he also said, there are levels that Kiefer Sherwood can get his game to and should get his game to. But again, it was a coach that didn't want to heap a ton of praise on this player in a game where, okay, the hits are great, but they needed him. Look, Dakota Joshua swings away from his man on the first goal in the third period, and then off the rush, Sherwood just slow on the back check. There were breakdowns, and I think that's the frustrating part for Rick Tocchet and his structure and his staples and everything else. And so I just thought it was sort of interesting response from the head coach on the day that he breaks this NHL record for hits. Rick Tocchet really wasn't having a whole lot of it.
The depth guys have done Can we ask more of the depth guys right now? Given
Sherwood's been a great signing. This guy's got 15 goals, but at times I do wonder if he kind of got lost in the pursuit of the hit record. That wasn't a terribly physical game the other day, and I think he recognized that he had a chance to set this record. Once he set the record, though, you got a game to play, and there are other ways to contribute. So he's been a terrific signing. I've got him for another year here, but I just think that there are moments within games where, the hit isn't the be all and end all. You're going to get the record. I mean, you're on that pace, and it's just, since Christmas, Kiefer Sherwood's underlying numbers have kind of cratered. He's been on the ice for way more goals against than the Canucks have scored with him out there. And so his own production has slowed in the second half of the season, but the team has struggled defensively. And I think that was recognition of the coach that, great for him, but ultimately it is a team game and they need every point, and a bit of a defensive breakdown ended up costing the Canucks on Saturday.
Okay, so who rises to the occasion? Let's assume no Höglander and no Paterson. Let's go worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Who scores the goals tonight?
Well, you hope that Brock continues on his hot run. He's got 5 in the last 3 games. Jake DeBrusk has gone a little quiet, hasn't scored since the game in Calgary, and it's crunch time for this team, and he is one of their guys, so you'd like a little more production. We know the story there with his streakiness. The other guy that's gone really quiet, and look, he missed a game last week, and Rick Tocchet has said a couple of times that he's banged up, but Connor Garland has 1 goal in his last 11 games. For all the hype of, the energy, and this guy shows up and drives play and everything else, in the absence of other legitimate scoring candidates, I look at Connor Garland and I just think, come on, man, this is the time now. And, he's on 17 for the season. Is he going to get to 20? I don't know how healthy he is. He's trying to get it out, so I'll give him credit for that. But, his numbers are off from a year ago. And it's just, there are so few, they got a goal from Dakota Joshua the other day. That was great. Did you see the reaction, the double bird from the New York fan behind the glass? But, they get goals from Dakota Joshua and Drew O'Connor. Those should help you win a hockey game, and they didn't the other day. So, the candidates are few and far between. I get Rick Tocchet sort of loading up that top line, but doesn't leave a whole lot beyond over the final 9 forwards, however they're assembled for this game against Jersey.
Let's get to today's menu. It's a briefer menu today on an early game day in the East Coast. And thanks to everybody for joining us live here a little bit earlier rather than later because of the early start on the East Coast. But the menu brought to you by Greta Bar YVR. It's the spot for all the games, home or away. And we've got one last viewing party coming up in April. Can't wait to see you there. Minutes from the arena. Come by and check out the fabulous events, the great street food menu. I'm always partial to the poutine, and of course the fabulous arcade that has made Greta Bar YBR the place to go. Weekly drink specials. Greta Bar, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. TSN's Frank Corrado is going to join us in just a little bit. We'll talk to him about what he saw versus the Rangers, what it's like to be on a sinking ship of a season here. This isn't a team that was eliminated in February. We know what those teams have been like. This is a team. This is a brand of Canuck that we haven't really seen a ton of. We haven't seen a lot of these Canuck seasons that have gone very late only to be crestfallen. Usually they've been either in the playoffs or washed out early. So we'll talk to Frank about the mindset and the chances going forward, ultimately non-mathematical, that is, for this team to rally. And we'll finish up, of course, talking about the weekend that was for Canadian men's soccer. The Whitecaps played on the weekend as well. And some other hockey news is the junior ranks undergo some changes and, of course, head to the playoffs themselves. So all that still to come here. Now time for our best bets, brought to you by Bet365. And I'll start because you've already mentioned his name, and I hope I'm not stealing this from you. But it is time for Jake DeBrusk. If ever there was a time for him, and I'm not saying Brock Besser can't stay hot either, Jeff, but they could probably use a couple of guys hot right now. Jake DeBrusk needs to score today. He just does. Plus 275 on a Jake DeBrusk goal here, and boy, oh boy, would that be sweet for the Vancouver Canucks. What do you got?
I mentioned earlier that on the out-of-town scoreboard tonight of interest to the Canucks, Utah, at home to the Detroit Red Wings. I guess if you're a Canucks fan and you want to believe that all points lost by those teams around them are good points, then you're pulling for the Red Wings. And there's a little value there on the road. You can get them at plus 145 on the money line. So go Wings and take a chunk out of the hockey club in Salt Lake City.
don't you wish that they were just a little bit closer? Like, like let's get us.
I'm sure they do.
Get the drama to the final week. That's my fear.
For sure.
The drama doesn't get to the final week. Like I'm saying, a 3 or 4 game win streak, which again should not be a massive ask for most teams in the NHL, gets their chances to the final week at the very least. We'll see.
And that comes back to the overtime record, some of those leads that have got away from them. We're going to have lots of time to look back on, where things went sideways for the Vancouver Canucks, but it's pretty easy to identify, just a handful of points that they should have in their back pocket.
Breaking news coming in from Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner. Every face-off, hat trick, power play, shot on goal, penalty shot, every suspenseful minute in between. It's amazing. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. Bet365, official partner of the NHL. Download the Bet365 app and use the code NATION to get in on the game. Must be 19 years of age or older. Please play responsibly. Stick around, folks. The one and only Frank Corrado coming up next. Garrison Price from the Wall Center, and your Pacific Toyota dealers want to unveil to you the brand new 100% electric BZ4X. Up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives. You can get it for 3.29% APR financing for 36 months, and you can have fun. That's what this car is about. It's about driving fun again while in the HOV lane and driving past all those gas stations as well. All they're asking, get behind the wheel of one. Take one for a test drive and find out what this fun is all about. And it's in a Toyota wrapping as well, so you know it's of the utmost quality. Shop Toyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. Also of the utmost quality is Mr. Frank Corrado from TSN, who joins us once again.
Wow.
And oh my goodness, do we have
what a segue.
You just got compared to a Toyota BZ4X, Frankie.
Wow. You know what? The thing is, I was the opposite of a Toyota when I played because I couldn't. The wheels fell off, baby, and that Toyota is going to give you 500,000 kilometers, hopefully.
That's right. Look at Frank selling cars right now. I love it. The wheels did fall off, most probably mathematically, for the Vancouver Canucks on the weekend. And hey, does anybody blame them? Circumstances conspired against them, Frank, and ultimately they were close in that Rangers game. They really were. But given the manpower they had lost going into the game, then mid-game, I mean, what else could you have asked for that team in that setting?
I know. And you know what? Like, you have to give the team credit with how they played, especially in that first period. Like, that first period was dominant. Like, New York had nothing, and to lose, significant pieces during the game. We know what they've been dealing with all season long. It's a tough blow, and it coincides with the Flames still playing pretty well. Like, winning games. St. Louis has been the hottest team in the NHL coming out of the Four Nations break, and I'm not sure we all would have had that on our bingo cards, but they deserve a lot of credit for how they're playing. Like, they've kind of taken control of their own fate. And there's, numerous points of the season you could look back to if you're the Canucks and say, well, okay, if this didn't happen, if that didn't happen, the Paterson thing, the Miller thing, Besser not scoring for 12 games, Demko, like there's just so many things that have led to this point. And it's just, it's unfortunate because I've said this before. They probably are a better team than what they've shown this year, but, not as good as they were last year. And they're not going to get a chance to, see if all the pieces could come together for them. We'll see. I don't think so anyways. It seems like it's a bit of a mountain.
This season
now.
is the photo negative of last. Everything went right last year. And I mean, almost everything has gone wrong this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And you go back to like right away Demko. Like that is the biggest red flag. But if it was just that, like if it was just Demko and Lankinen played the way he did, the Canucks are not in this situation. Like they're still right in the mix for a top 3 in the Pacific Division. But then when you add in everything else that happened, Hughes not like we totally forgot Quinn Hughes. Wasn't playing for significant stretch of the year and had been playing hurt, even though you wouldn't be able to know because he's still oftentimes the best player on the ice. Like it really is such a stark contrast of what it was last year. And I guess it's too early to do the whole summit on this year and where that leads us to next year. I think there's a lot of hockey that needs to be played. There's a lot of things that need to sort themselves out. But it's almost like because last year happened, you almost can't just put all your stock into what happened this year. Like they almost have to balance each other out a little bit when they're kind of making their plans for next year now. Like it does have to be. It has to be weighed together. It can't just be a 1 year. It can't just be. We're not just making decisions based on what happened this year because last year was really good and it happened, and we just have to know it wasn't a fluke.
Frank, and I'm not asking you to remember specific games, although maybe you will, but I'm sure you sat on a bench somewhere along the line where your team has an 11-1 shot advantage, 21-4 at some point, and you look up at the scoreboard and you're thinking, 1-0. Like, we got to get that next one somehow, some way. It sort of had that feel the other day that for all the good, the longer they left the Rangers hanging around, you just kind of got a sense that it was going to be, here are the Canucks again. They're going to find a way to blow this.
And isn't it crazy that would they have 39 shots in that game for a team in the Canucks that A, don't generate a lot of shots, and B, have had this whole philosophy of okay, we don't want to waste them. We want to save them for quality. They had both. Everything kind of came together in a way that it doesn't usually for them, and they still end up losing the game. So, I'm wearing I think you can see I'm wearing my Utica Comets hoodie today,
nice.
Jeff. And so, your question brought me back to the AHL finals. My second year pro there when we lost to Manchester. We had Markstrom in net. But we couldn't beat, we thought we were getting chances, and we couldn't beat their guy. It was a French guy. I can't remember his name right now. He was good, though. He ended up playing in the NHL the next season. But yeah, I remember sitting on the bench thinking, okay, if a couple of these don't go in, it could go against us. And it does, it does happen. You'll sit there and you'll think that kind of stuff. You're only human, and we've all been involved in games that have gone that way. The thing is, there was massive consequences on the line for the Canucks in that game. And the Miller-Paterson thing, for me anyways, kind of just took a total back seat to the actual, team outcome for the Canucks.
Was it JF Berube?
There we go. Thank you.
Google
That's
to the
who it
rescue.
was. Yeah.
Hey, Rick Tocchet talked about this after practice yesterday, and really sort of a fascinating line of questioning, I thought, that in a game where the Canucks are short-staffed, hope is in short supply, Quinn Hughes has 9 shots on 15 attempts. The underlying numbers were so crooked, it made no sense. Oh, and on top of that, he sets the fastest speed burst in the NHL in 3 years. He really seemed to be doing it all the other day. But if the Canucks have better finishers in their lineup, Frank, is it a best-case scenario for Quinn Hughes to be shooting the puck 15 times a game? Or, would you like Quinn Hughes to be able to use his playmaking ability to find other guys in other situations that maybe have a better chance to actually put a puck in the net?
I think it's a valid point. I think for Hughes, it goes back to the start of last year where he was challenged to shoot the puck more. Because if you think about the way Hughes plays the game, especially on the offensive blue line, chances are he's going to beat someone with his feet. And so now what do you do after you just beat that person? Chances are you have a lane. Now, in the past, maybe he was guilty of looking to the back door or across the seam or not being as direct with it. So I think just the sheer volume of times that he's going to have a lane because he beat someone and knocked them out of the way will lead to just naturally him having more shot attempts. But, if the plays are there to be made, I think you go ahead and make the plays all day long. It's just, I can imagine, never had the feet like that, never had the hands like that, but I can just imagine being able to, shimmy someone, get them to commit, and then look up and all you see is the goalie or you see bodies in front. The other thing we've seen from the Canucks this year is they go to the point a lot. So that would tell me that in practice they're talking about low to high, everyone go to the net shot. Low to high, same thing, go to the net shot. So if that is if that's the philosophy, there's going to be way more onus on Hughes to make sure he's shooting. And then if you have the ability to shake someone off and get the lanes, of course you're going to shoot a little bit more. So I think it's those two things for Hughes. And hey, if there was some finishers around, then feel free to spread it around. But I would be quite certain that that's the game plan, and he's so good at it. How do you pass it up?
Well, let's turn our attention forward now, and this segment brought to you by resurrectionspirits.ca. S&P Gin has arrived. Yes, I'm serious. S&P G&T is coming in this spring and summer. Use the code SNP to get $5 off. That's S&P to get $5 off. Resurrection Spirits, locally owned and operated. It's distilled in East Vancouver. A depth of taste for you gin lovers that has to be tasted to be believed. Resurrectionspirits.ca. Going forward, we'll see in a few hours' time the status of Elias Pettersson, Nils Höglander, and Thatcher Demko, for that matter, who appears to be getting the start. But without Elias Pettersson and Filip Chytil, I mean, Frank, how do they possibly even dream the biggest dream? If 8-4 does it, as we've talked about, how do you get to 8-4 without two centers?
You say a prayer. Seriously,
Yeah.
that's what you do at this point. You say a prayer and just hope that you have a magical run in you. The thing is, there's been nothing magical about this season, and so there's just too much working against you. And you're playing Jersey, who are the epitome of average right now. They have, players saying very innocent things in the media. I don't know if you guys saw what Jonathan Kovacevic said the other day. He was asked about, the team and how they're playing right now, and he said they have to play with a playoff mentality. And Sheldon Keefe afterwards was told that at the presser and said, well, he's just got to worry about playing better himself in a pretty snippy way. So it's like a Tinder match in Jersey right now, okay? Mm-hmm. And so they're going to be ready to go. The Islanders are like this team that kind of came out of nowhere in the Eastern Conference and are now pushing up to a playoff spot. I wouldn't say they're playing great, but they're winning games. So it doesn't get any easier there. The Blue Jackets are they just got bodies back. They just got bodies back, and they've been losing so much, and now they have Monahan's back, Goodbranson's back. They have the reinforcements. I guess my point is, it's not going to get easy for the Canucks. It's going to get harder based on who they're playing, based on who they have available, and the fact that if we've learned anything this year, it's not just there's no switch that gets flipped for this team. Regardless of what has happened, that just hasn't been the case. And I don't know. I said it was unfortunate before. I still think it's unfortunate because they probably, if everything went, 10, 15, 20% better, it's a different situation for them. But that's the reality of where they're at right now.
What do you think's at stake here for Thatcher Demko? I mean, it's been a lost season. We know that. They went and committed to Kevin Lankinen in the offseason here. It would feel to me like of paramount importance is that he stays healthy, that he can't afford any sort of injury here that would set him back in terms of having a full summer to train and apply himself and get ready for next season. But There are 12 games to go here. I guess those that want to believe and the ones that are saying their prayers think that he can come in here and be a savior for the Vancouver Canucks. But, from your sense, what's at stake for Thatcher Demko over the final 12 games, however many he might play?
I think it's more just showing yourself that you can stay healthy and you can feel good. Like, you're at the point in the season where, like, it's not all on your shoulders. You're not expected to be, the all-star version of yourself who has to steal games, although it would be nice. And if they were going to make a run of this thing, that would have to happen. But like for me, it's more, can I be in the net in game situations, do what I'm supposed to do? How do I feel afterwards? And then can I recover the next day? And can I set myself up? This is the most important thing. Can I set myself up for a summer where I'm not constantly having needles and, massages and being on the table, and I can actually, train and get flexible and get on the ice? Like that's the biggest thing I think this is for Thatcher Demko. It's almost like I don't know if you want to call it like a spring training, like related to baseball, but that's kind of what it would feel like. Just proving to yourself that you can get through this, feel good enough that you go into the summer that you're not working from behind again. And if that's the case, then that's great, because there's a good chance that he'll have the summer and the start of next season to feel healthy and feel good, and that changes the way this team looks and operates. But for right now, it's not necessarily about wins and losses. It's more about the recovery, of the day-to-day and setting yourself up for a good offseason. It always has to be like a long-term vision in mind with a guy that is as talented as him.
What do you think the defense is thinking in front of him right now? Do they feel like they've got to protect this guy at all costs? I mean, how's that not in the head of the defenseman right now?
Yeah. Block everything you can, make sure you're diligent in front of the net. In a way, it's a good little reminder, and this is not because of Demko's playing ability at all. It's more just because the guy hasn't played and he's been hurt, so why not help him out as much as possible? Yeah. What's funny, like, I always kind of realize this, like, after the fact, when you watch your shifts back or you watch your games back. As a defenseman, there's so much, like, narrative around be aggressive, limit time and space, go, like apply pressure. And then sometimes when you sit back and you watch it on video, you kind of realize everything funnels to the front of the net. And so as much as we want to go and push and go and apply pressure, and some teams want to have the swarm where they have 3 players in the corner, at some point it's coming to where you just were. So I think that's something for, when you have Demko back in the net that you keep in mind, and you're like, okay, I'll go pressure, but also at the same time, like, it's coming here. So I don't want to be too eager to kind of leave my posts in front and have him deal with point blank opportunities. So I mean, that's just one thing, kind of anecdotal, but I think for a guy that's as well liked and who has kind of saved their butts a lot over the course of time, it would be nice to make things as easy as possible on him.
Overall, the mindset here, like, mathematically, they don't have to win out. Like, I always think, that's a lost cause when you need to go 6-0 to finish the season to keep it. I mean, that you're a lost case. Right now, the Canucks went 8-4. They got a chance. I think if they went 9-3, they are in, and that's an aggressive run of games. But you are allowed to lose contests too, so you don't have the gun to your head per se. Do these players believe it in their brains? Do they believe that they can go 8-4, 9-3?
Well, you would hope so, and you would think so. Like, I don't think they're sitting around kind of doom and gloom listening to whatever conjecture is out there about the team. Like, they would have to have that belief. And there's a certain stubbornness to everyone, because you wouldn't have got to that level if you weren't stubborn to a certain degree, right? You had to push through stuff. You had to defy some kind of odds. So I think, given that there's a lot of players that were here last year, although that's diminishing now as time has gone on, and saw what everything was like last year, there would be a belief within the group for sure. The problem is you just had a game against the Rangers where you absolutely deserved to win, and everything that you're supposed to do, you kind of did and didn't get the result. And so that's the one where you're like, okay, that's That's demoralizing because you're going to play some where you don't deserve to win, and chances are you won't. The ones where you do deserve to win, you can't afford to lose those ones. So it's not an easy situation, but I think guys are just wired to still have that belief all the way right down to the end, no matter what.
Well, one of the reasons the Canucks are now in this predicament is the St. Louis Blues have come out of absolutely nowhere. I mean, I don't think anybody saw a 13-2-2 run for the St. Louis Blues, best team since the Four Nations. They made their coaching change in November, and maybe it's taken a little longer than Jim Montgomery had hoped, but it seems like he's got his team playing the way that they want, and you just happen to be there in St. Louis. You're working a Habs Blues game. What have you seen that's allowed St. Louis to do this? And it's sort of a question out of the blue here, but like Dylan Holloway has been the player the Blues had hoped when they went and fished him from Edmonton, and Broberg scored the winner the other night in overtime against the Canucks. Do you think this is going to make teams step back and reevaluate the idea of the offer sheet in the offseason? You've got so few ways to get better, and the cap's going up. People are going to have some money to spend. I suppose teams defensively will have money to match, but do you think this makes teams take another look at the offer sheet?
I totally think it does. I hope we're in for a summer of offer sheets, because if you look at the UFA class this year, it's not overly exciting. Outside of Marner and Bennett and a couple other guys, like depending on your your excitement level for a guy like John Tavares, but you're not building your team through this UFA class. But there's some interesting RFAs, like Marco Rossi's out there. There's a few guys that you look at and you're like, man, I would love to pluck a young guy who I can have some control over. And the way Holloway and Broberg have played, it would lead you to believe that could be a very good decision. You just have to find a team that's in a jam the way that Edmonton was, or a team that spent carelessly in UFA season like Edmonton did, thinking that they were going to squeeze their RFAs. That's the thing now. You got to be careful with your RFAs. You're not going to squeeze them the way you used to, because the cap is going up like crazy, and teams are going to have more money, and teams don't want to spend it all on the UFAs that are 32 that aren't going to move the needle, so they'll go and try and spend it on a younger guy, or they'll live with what they got realistically, because that will hurt them less than a bad signing having bad money on the books. So and as far as what's going well for St. Louis, like, they're actually a very good defensive team, and why wouldn't they? Like Leddy, Falk, Fowler, like Suter, I'm pretty sure all those guys are over 1,000 games and still have, they still have game. Colton Parayko's not playing right now, but you figure at some point he's around. And then up front, the Neighbors, Thomas, and Buchnevich line was the best line in hockey, coming out of the Four Nations break. Now, Buchnevich is day-to-day. Zach Bolduc goes up last night, and they didn't miss a beat. Like, they played great together. And the Holloway line with Kyrou and Shen, like, that's a top six. That's quite good. They're speedy. They can make plays. They have shooters on every line. There's enough grit. Like, Neighbors and Shen are really gritty. They've found it. They probably wanted to find it sooner with Jim Montgomery. But yeah, that's exactly what was intended for them.
All right, Frankie, I don't know where Blake went. He's taking a little coffee break, but great stuff. Enjoy watching the St. Louis Blues team do its thing. I know that big one for Montreal, and obviously we're all watching the Vancouver Canucks trying to keep their playoff hopes alive here. So appreciate you stopping by today. We'll catch up with you next week.
All right, see you, fellas. Thanks, Jeff.
Sekeres and Price from the Wall Center, or at least half the show is. And if you got tickets for the big game, why not make it a full experience and stay downtown at the Wall Center? Call them at 604-331-1000. Ask for the Sekeres and Price rates. Some blackout dates may apply based on availability. Everybody that comes just loves the Wall Center. Make sure you do check it out. And this segment brought to you by our fine friends at Ben Moss, proudly Canadian-owned and operated with history dating back more than 100 years. They've got 5 locations to serve you: Abbotsford, Victoria, Chilliwack, Willowbrook, and Langley, Coquitlam Center, and they are committed to customer satisfaction. So if you don't know what you're doing with regards to diamonds, it's okay. They've got a large selection of mine diamonds that have got payment plans to suit your need, lab-grown diamonds, and if you've got general questions about jewelry in general, they'll help you out with that as well. For more information, check out benmoss.com. Ben Moss, for the love of jewelry. Jeff, lots to get to here outside of the realm of hockey, most notably, of course, and we never get sick and tired of this, Canada beating the U.S. at a sport. This time it's soccer, 2-1 at a half-empty SoFi Stadium. It, alas, is for third at the Nations League finals, but at least we have that to hold on to because they are absolutely drowning themselves in sorrow, self-pity, and self-reflection after losing both of their games here in this window. And this is, of course, just a year away from the World Cup, and they are losing their minds.
Well, and you said a half-empty SoFi, and then it got a little emptier there midway through when Jesse Marsh got turfed. Yeah. But Jonathan David, nice finish, obviously. I mean, that's what he's there for, the clinical finish, to provide the scoring touch. Love the fact that Canada got out in front. So, I mean, for how many years have we watched Canada's men's side fall behind and just know that they don't have the firepower, but get a lead, try to build on it. Ultimately, the U.S. tied it up, but good to see Canada pull through. So, yeah, absolutely. Tariff that. How about, you're right. Anytime we beat them, it's a good thing, especially as we work closer to 2026.
I had tweeted out that we should challenge them to a game of hoops now, with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, of course, leading the way. But actually, the last head-to-head, now they went farther, obviously, than we did in the Olympics. We never went head-to-head with them. The last head-to-head between these two teams in hoops was at the World Cup of basketball back in 2023. We won that one. So we are the reigning victors, if you will, not champions, but victors in the head-to-head in 3 different sports right now, Jeff.
Oh, holding that over them. I love it.
I mean, baseball and football, that would be an aggressive flex for us to suggest that we could beat them in either one of those sports. But hey, I will absolutely take it. Taniola Shea, by the way, opening his Canadian men's account as well with the opening goal in that one. So that is great. On the soccer side of things, not all great news, however, because the Whitecaps lost 3-1 to Chicago. And the disappointing thing is that's a home match at BC Place, and home was not great to the Whitecaps last season. And it was the Berhalter Bowl, Seb against his dad, who's now in charge of the Chicago Fire. And I think they deserve a draw out of it. It's a goal at the death because the Whitecaps had all pushed forward looking for the tying goal. So it ends up as a 3-1 final for Chicago, really a 2-1 match. But with everybody missing, and I mean everybody was missing for this one, it would have been a huge feather in the cap for them to somehow find a point and keep their unbeaten streak alive to start the season. So, hey, 4-1, no one's going to scoff at it, Jeff, but there was a miracle story here where at least they were 4-0-1.
Yeah, look, they weren't going to win them all. I think we knew that much, but hey, it was fun while it lasted. And you're right. At home, you wanted to believe that you could continue the push here. You know, you talk about a goal at the death. Really, death came early for the Whitecaps the other night. And a first-minute goal. I mean, Chicago just takes the ball basically and runs down the field. Made it look pretty easy. That had to be difficult to overcome. Obviously, you still got 90 minutes of football to play, but to give up an early one like that, you're on your back foot. You're pushing. And so, a bit of a tough start, obviously, but hey, as you said, the record is what it is. Still damn impressive, and hopefully when they get manpower back, they can bounce back and start moving this thing in the right direction again.
And the scars were there for Whitecaps fans that have been watching the Canadian men, because, of course, that's exactly what happened versus Mexico a few nights back in that Nations League semifinal. So, my goodness, can the teams just survive the opening minute, please, before subjecting us to terror from there on in? So, both soccer teams going down over the last few days, but Canada at least salvages the win over the United States. Back to hockey for a second, Jeff, because the Western Hockey League playoffs are now set, and somebody has to go down with the BC division. The 2Ks are out, Kamloops and Kelowna, but 3 BC teams are nevertheless in the WHL playoffs. Everett versus Seattle get things started, but Victoria in versus Tri-City, Spokane and the Giants, and then the Prince George Cougars taking on Portland. So 3 different, and nobody has to take each other out in terms of the BC team. So that's kind of nice. You can cheer on all 3 of them individually. but the playoffs are set, and it allows people to sort of plan accordingly. And there is going to be playoff hockey in Vancouver, only down at the LAC.
Yeah, a couple of things jumped out at me when I saw the Giants release their first-round schedule against Spokane. They're the lower seed, but you see this in the Western Hockey League with building availability at this time of the year. That series is actually going to start out at Langley at the LEC next weekend, Friday and Sunday, and it goes 2, then 3 in Spokane if necessary, and then 1-1. So a bit of a unique format. And look, the Giants finished 6th in the Western Conference. They're going to have their hands full. Spokane has loaded up here. They mean business. They went out. They got Andrew Crystal from Kelowna at the trade deadline. He's just been incredible, whether it was with the Rockets or the Chiefs. The Spokane Chiefs had the top 2 goal scorers in the Western Hockey League, Blake. So that's what, and Crystal's one of them. So that's what the Giants are up against is the lower seed. Now, they do start at home. We'll see if they can make home ice work and maybe put a little squeeze on that Spokane Hockey Club. But all sorts of firepower, and it's going to make for a stiff challenge for the Vancouver Giants. But you're right. At least they're in. There's playoff hockey here. And, look, I follow the Blazers at an arm's length. Shocked to see Kamloops and Kelowna as the last 2 placed teams in the Western Conference. You just don't see that. Regina, one of the great franchises in the Western Hockey League, they're out of the playoffs on the other side. So some of the high-profile outfits and operators in junior hockey, at least in the Western Hockey League, on the sidelines as the playoffs get going later this week.
And the BC division is set to swell, so more competition for teams like Kamloops and Kelowna, because the Penticton Vs are officially, it's on letterhead now, Jeff, they are officially into the Western Hockey League for next season, if you can believe it. They've got some high-priced ownership with Mark Scheifele and Mike Richter joining the current ownership group coming out of the BCHL, along with a couple of Penticton businessmen that have joined in as well, along with the Fraser family. So there's a new team on the block, and it's, the Penticton Bees have got a great location. We'll see if they can continue to fill that building for the Western Hockey League. You hope there's going to be at least initial fascination with it. The interesting stuff for me, Jeff, is if Chilliwack, and they've got an application in for a year from now, possibly joining the Western Hockey League, what do they do with alignment at that point? Do they ship PG back over to the Alberta side? Like, what they can't just make the BC division a massive division, can they?
You'd think not. We have seen junior hockey draw some pretty bizarre dividing lines over the years, both the BC Hockey League and the Western Hockey League. So they'll cross that bridge, I guess, when they get to it. But interesting that they want to go back to Chilliwack. Obviously, Chilliwack was there briefly and then ended up moving over to Victoria. But the building is sitting there. I know that the building ownership has reverted to the city of Chilliwack. They want a tenant. Chilliwack Chiefs have been there in the BC Hockey League, but a chance, obviously, to bump it up. And look, we have covered Young Stars for years. We know the facility there that the Penticton Vs have played out of in the BC Hockey League, but that league in a state of flux. But I have no doubt. I think Penticton will be a terrific franchise. That rivalry with Kelowna, just built in, baked in right off the hop. The Rockets had territorial rights, so they had to work out an agreement there. But apparently all of that has been cleared out of the way. And so, yes, the Western Hockey League welcoming Penticton for next season. Fred Harbison's run such a terrific program there for so many years that I have no doubt they're going to want to be competitive right off the top and, show the big boys that they mean business as they step in there. And look, we saw Wenatchee make the jump from the BC Hockey League to the Western Hockey League. Just the whole junior hockey landscape has been in such a state of flux here over the last couple of years. But, Chilliwack, I wonder a little bit. We talk about this fairly frequently, just that corridor from Langley right out through the Fraser Valley, whether it's the Western Hockey League, the BC Hockey League, the American Hockey League with the Abbotsford Club. There's a lot of options there, and you just hope that they can all find a way to make it work on the business side.
And then for the BCHL, Jeff, where is that league going now? It was a bold move a few years ago when they left the Hockey Canada confines, if you will, and went rogue. And now with the NCAA barriers off and players able to play in the WHL and then go play college, the purpose of the BCHL has seemingly been lost. You just wonder where their future is.
Yeah, and I hope that there is one, and I hope that some smart minds can sort of figure out the best path forward for the BC Hockey League. So many people have put in so many years of work, and you're right. Its golden ticket was the pathway to college scholarships, and now that has changed, I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I just know that it's such a great history over so many years in the BC Hockey League that you hope that there is a way that they can continue to push forward here and deliver a product to some of those markets where, maybe it doesn't have the profile here in Metro Vancouver, but around the province in some of those smaller centers, there's still a big deal. And you just hope
that's a big Friday night is going to the game.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah. So I hope there is a path forward for the BC Hockey League.
All right. Look at our last poll question, wrapping up the poll question from Friday. Overall, are the Canucks better off without JT Miller? What do you think the fans said?
Well, they weren't on Saturday. And now as we wonder about Elias Paterson and his availability and Filipinos. Could they borrow JT Miller for the game in Jersey?
Just a rental.
Rangers are now on a Western road trip, so I think he's unavailable. I'm going to say big picture that people said, yes, the Vancouver Canucks are better off without JT Miller.
They did, but it was narrow, 55.1%. So, still, I think people saw the medium and long-term benefits, but the short-term is so non-beneficial that I think it swayed a little bit. So 55-44 or 55-45, pardon me, when it all is said and done. And he would have come in handy against the Rangers, not for the Rangers, over the course of the weekend. And really the death knell. And again, that wasn't lost on JT Miller over the weekend as well. Errors and omissions from Friday. Matt had brought out some JT Miller quotes. They were ancestral quotes. He thought they were more recent than that. They were from an older Harmon Dial article. So he apologizes for that and takes the E&O on that one. And he had also called the Caps undefeated. But they were perfect heading into the weekend, not only undefeated because they had no draws either. They were looking to stay undefeated at the very least. They were right on perfect up until that point. So that's E's and O's for another day, and that's a show for another day. Jeff, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. You'll be back. I think
Matt back tomorrow.
We always appreciate you jumping in, and Matt is right back into it. So we will watch this game with interest and have more on tomorrow's show as well. Jeff, appreciate it. And folks, don't forget to support all these fabulous businesses that you see supporting us. Don't forget to buy local, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on Secure Some Price.